Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new webinar where we're going to talk about the anatomy of a ransomware attack. We provide the use case and lessons learned. So my name is Laurent Deheyer. I'm working for Approach Belgium, a pure player in cybersecurity and privacy services, and I am the SOC Director, which means that as part of my team, I also have specific services for the CSIRT, which are basically the team responsible to intervene 24/7 when there is a severe incident to one of our clients. So the goal of this session is to talk about a real case scenario that my CSIRT team experienced not so long ago. That was on a ransomware attack. So the objective of today is to review exactly what happened, some of the key facts. So we are going to look a little bit deeper into the attack and trying to understand how things has happened and trying to explain the anatomy of such an attack. Then we'll go to some key takeaways. And of course, at the end, we'll make some conclusion. So first of all, what happened? So just to start with, the ransomware that we are going to talk about is a very famous one, which is called the Hive. The Hive ransomware, which is part of the bigger family of what we call the Conti ransomware attack. The Hive is a very good example of what we call a ransomware as a service. So it has been developed in Russia, and it has been made to be used by kiddies in hacking, so people who don't necessarily have to have higher skill in IT or in development or in hacking, but can use the Hive ransomware as a tool to claim ransom to their victim. It's pretty designed to exploit known vulnerabilities, as well as focusing on what we call the double extortion. So double extortion, what that means is, as you know right now, ransomware are not just focusing on locking or encrypting your files or your data, but they're also looking into extortion, leaking the data and threaten the victim to leak those data publicly on the internet if they don't pay the ransom. So on one hand, they are still locking or encrypting the files and the data. On the other hand, they are also leaking the data. Fun fact is that one of the architects of the Hive, part of the bigger hacking group called Mikhail Pavlovich, has been arrested not so long ago. That was the end of 24, has been arrested in Russia. There was a reward of more than $10 million from the United States of America. It is not known exactly what's going to happen with him, whether it will be extradited to the USA or whether he will be released. That's something that we don't know yet. So just to start with, let's make a first understanding of what is the context of the victim organization. And as you can see, it's a rather, let's say, small and medium business. It's an SMB company that was hacked in the insurance industry with around about 400 workstation, 20 servers, a local admin directory. They are making use of M365 for email exchange and using of SharePoint. They have traditional security measures like an antivirus, firewall, VPN, and they have a backup solution as well. They are making use of a remote desk access service, and that is basically what is being used by their external IT supplier. So they have outsourced all of their IT to an external supplier, and that is of its importance for the next explanation of this session. So what happened? So first of all, guess what? The attack started on a Friday afternoon or a Friday evening where everybody is going home and hope to have a nice weekend. Well, this is where we start to see probe connecting using the administrator logging from the remote desktop system to the Active Directory. So we've seen those probe occurring late in the evening on a Friday. A couple of minutes later, we've seen on that machine a trial to attempt disabling the antivirus using a dedicated malware tool. Still a few minutes later, the hacker dropped a beacon that was launched through PowerShell execution. So basically, the beacon was installed just to establish a connection between the victim environment and the command and control servers from the hacker. Then they also deployed a Trojan, another backdoor, to really create a persistence on the network. And finally, when they established the connection with the victim environment, they started to make some query and to start to try to discover what's on the internet. So they've used a known tool to query the Active Directory and to see what are the different subnets which are available on the network. And when they have done that, so basically they also run a tool which performs a scan on the different subnets that they have identified so that they can see where are the active machines available on those subnets. Once they've done that, of course, they wanted to know exactly what was running on those machines. So they've run a script that they have created in order to detect all the different tools that are being run on the different devices. Like, for example, what is the AV tool? What are the backup solutions? How the machine hardened with specific policies and stuff like that. Then once they had that information, they just wanted to expand their foothold. So they just run the same type of operation several times to really be deployed everywhere on the target victim network. And then a little bit past midnight, around 1 o'clock, they started to exfiltrate data. And then around 3 a.m. in the morning, what they did is they deleted the shadow copy so that they can make sure that the IT department could not recover from the last shadow copy of the machine, and then they start to encrypt the different files. And then at 5 a.m. in the morning, all the file servers were fully encrypted. So this is basically in a nutshell what happened. So now let's have a deeper look into the attack and try to understand basically the different aspects of it. So first of all, the timeline. If you look into the full execution of the attack, it took less than 3 hours to exfiltrate the data, and it took them less than 6 hours to encrypt all of the file systems and file servers. So the attack actually went very, very rapidly. So as opposed to what we hear in many cases, that indeed hackers tries to remain undetected for a long time on a victim environment. That is true when they are doing initial access or where they have objectives like cyber espionage or or criminal espionage. But in this case, what they really wanted is to have an immediate impact, and that's the model of the ransomware cyber criminal. Then, secondly, how did they get access? So what was the initial access? In fact, during the investigation, we couldn't get a clear artifact explaining how the hacker get inside the network. So we suspect that the administrator account was either brute forced or the credentials were available somewhere on the dark web. And then we also suspect that they've exploited one CVE vulnerability that was available on the remote desktop systems. Things important to know is that according to ENISA, in 95%, more than 95% of the incident, it is not known how threat actors get initial access into a target organization. Then, how did the ransomware basically worked, what are the action that it could do, and on which type of assets. This matrix is a nice one coming from the ENISA threat landscape for ransomware attack that was released in 2022, and that basically depicts the different types of action that a ransomware can take on which type of asset. And when you're starting the investigation, it is very important to understand the behavior of the ransomware and the malicious files, so that you can really determine what will be the best strategy for confining the attack, and then for eradicating the bad actor. So doing digital forensics and doing reverse engineering is very important. In this case, we could rapidly see that the ransomware was attacking the file system. So it was not attacking either the memory, the folders, the master boot records, but it was really focusing on the files. And what it did is encrypted the files and steal the data, so the data leak. So from there on, there are immediate action that we could take, like, for example, deploying an EDR, an endpoint detection response, on the file systems in order to contain the attack. The tools. This is a very interesting slide, in my opinion, because it gives an overview of the amount of different tools that have been used by the hacker to basically attain their objective. And the first thing to note is that they were not using only one single tool, but they were using a collection of tools, and each tools in a very specific period during the attack. So was it to perform execution? Was it to perform a discovery? Was it to perform exfiltration, or to collect any type of action? So depending on where you are in the kill chain of the attack, it was using different types of tools. And then, so what you can see is that it was using around about 12 different tools during the whole attack. And what is more interesting is that more than half of those tools are actually legitimate tools. So there are tools which are either natively present into the operating system, or which are normal administrative use that your IT administrator is using on a daily basis. So what that means, it means indeed that only using traditional detection type of mechanism is not enough. You really need to use behavioral type of toolings in order to detect what's going on the network. And of course, what we did in our case, we didn't have a contract with that client at that moment. So we really entered into a field that we did not know. So first of all, we need to understand what was going on. So in terms of preparation, normally, you need to have a team available. You need to have your incident response plan. All of that was not present. So we were really acting in an ad hoc type of situation. But we started to do some analysis. So trying to understand and identify the different indicator of compromise. So what are the different URLs, IP addresses, user accounts, files that were used during the attack, and we started to make a collections of those different artifacts. We also used, like I said, sandboxing to try to understand the behavior of the different malware that we discovered. So we need to understand how they act, and that was done with our digital forensic expert. At that time, we also started to help the client making an assessment of the impact. So what was the business impact for them? There is a technical impact, but there is also a business impact, especially in terms of data privacy and data protection. So were there personal data impacted, being encrypted or being leaked? And in that case, it was the case. So we had also to provide additional support to the DPO, the data protection officer. And that is something that we were able to do because we have also the privacy capacity in our team. So we could help them to do some breach management and report exactly what's going on to the data protection authority. Then, of course, We went through a containment action, and in order to do that, as I explained already, we have been using a new technology, so endpoint detection and response, that we deployed on all of the devices that were up and running. Secondly, we also resetted all of the passwords, implemented multi-factor authentication. We've temporarily disconnected some VLANs, which we suspected the hacker was still present, and we've been patching the remote desktop server. Once we did all that, and of course that's an iterative process, so it's not like it's very sequential, but analysis, containment, and eradication goes also in an iterative type of process. But in order to eradicate the bad guys from the network, we started to run some hunting campaigns using the IOCs that we've identified during the analysis phase. So we run some query on the network using the EDR capability. And by doing so, we've identified where the hacker was still present, where they still had persistence on some of the devices. Therefore, we were able to remove those threats from those devices. And also during that period that we also, like I said, communicated towards the different stakeholders, being internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. And then what we've done all that, we also help the customer to recover the system. So the good news in this particular cases is that the client had air-gapped backups. So in terms of data points, they did not lose a lot of data, only a couple of hours. And it took them a couple of days to recover all of the file systems on all of the different devices and servers, and we help them to do that into a clean environment. So now that we have explained how the hacking took place, let's try to see what are the key takeaways we can take from this attack. So first of all, I think it's important that every organization evaluate its own attack surface. As I explained, ransomware as a service are being used by kiddies. Their only objective is to have profitability. So they will look and search on the internet using different bots and trying to see where they have open vulnerabilities that they could rapidly exploit. So by doing a very simple evaluation of your attack surface, so running regularly some vulnerability scan on your network, trying to see if there are known or publicly available credentials that have been leaked on the internet. These are easy action that you can take, and that will help you to avoid being hacked by those ransomware as a service. Still, in the evaluation of your attack surface, this slide I like a lot because it explains basically the business of the ransomware as a service. That's a slide that comes from a Microsoft website, and it's really explaining the cybercrime economy. So you have different types of actors now, which are specializing in different area, and it starts with the access broker. So these are group of hackers who are really specializing themselves in getting initial access to a network and getting persistence on the network. So they are not going to use any malware or to try to get any data or to steal any data from the network. They just want to get inside the network. And then what they do once they have the access, for example, they have exploited vulnerability on server, they have compromised credential. What they do is they go on the darknet and they are reselling those access to other actors, which will use those access in order to get their objective and attack the system actively. So that's the second part, which is the ransomware service affiliate. So these one will purchase the access from the access broker, and they will rent the ransomware from the ransomware as a service operator, which are the big brain, the big architect of the ransomware. And so all that creates that economy of cybercrime. And like I said, they are really looking into profitability. So that's a real business, and they run their business as a legitimate business, in fact. Another key takeaway, patch your system. I just keep repeating the same, but ransomware as a service, they will target the low-hanging fruits. So they will target the known CVE. So if you patch your system smart, so by adopting a risk-based approach, so prioritizing your patching, so really understanding from which vector the hacker could get into your system, on your critical system. This is where you need to prioritize your patching, and this is what you have to do. This is basic cybersecurity hygiene. I'm in this business for more than 25 years. And for more than 25 years, I keep telling my client that you need to patch your system. So it seems quite obvious, but it's still not done, believe me, in many cases. So that's something basic that you can all do. Action number 2 sounds also very obvious, and we see progression for the last 2 to 3 years, but activate your multi-factor authentication everywhere. So don't focus only on the administrative account, but use it on all of your administrative user account, personal accounts. Activate your MFA everywhere. If you look into the Microsoft Digital Defense report from last year, you see that more than 99% of the attack are identity-based. So they are trying to replay a breach, or they're using password spray type of attack, or they are using phishing, and that corresponds to 99% of the attack. So by protecting your identity, by protecting your ID, and you enforce strong authentication mechanism, you will avoid already a big portion of the different attack you can get from those ransomware as a service. Then, as I explained in the beginning, more than half of the tools and the actions being used will remain under the radar of traditional anti-malware or antivirus type of solution. It have to be known that more than 60% of the attack are not linked to malicious tools. And that's what we could demonstrate also with the analysis of the Hive. And 2 out of 3 malicious tools remains undetected by traditional anti-malware. So you need to increase the visibility. You need to have tools and processes that provides you the right telemetry to your IT or to a dedicated SOC, so that you understand what's going on and that you can detect any abnormal behavior or anomalies on your network, so that you can immediately take action upon. And when we say taking action, you should also focus on automation. As you could see from the timeline of the attack, everything happened in less than 6 hours in the middle of the night. So either you have really a SOC eye on the glass 24/7 with a very proactive SOC analyst that can immediately take an action manually, but believe me, that's probably not going to be the case. Or you also need to invest into new technologies, leveraging artificial intelligence, learning management, and what we call SOAR, so security, automation, and orchestration systems. And then, of course, prepare for the worst. In our case, our client didn't have an incident response plan. They didn't have tools available. They didn't have experts. They didn't know who was responsible for what during the incident. So it was a little bit hectic, and we lost a lot of time. Of course, if the organization had a response team in place internally, or by subscribing to an external CSIRT with as 24/7 availability and can commit on an SLA, situation would have been different. If they had a communication plan ready, if they have all of the backup ready, probably the recovery of the incident could have gone much faster than what was initially anticipated. In our case, it took them a little bit more than a week to get fully recovered. It could have gone faster. Now, again, I think they have been very lucky, because we know that in more than 50% of the cases, SMBs don't even can recover from such an attack. And yes, raise awareness and train your users. So perform human security awareness assessment regularly. Train your users on recent attack vector and good practices. Train them on recognizing what is a phishing campaign. So launch phishing simulation regularly, and then measure the progress and trying to create a cybersecurity culture into your organization. So to summarize, what should be your action plan? First of all, make an evaluation of your attack surface and do it regularly, please. Regularly patch your system. Activate your multi-factor authentication on all of your accounts if it's not already done. Of course, focus on user with privileges, but like I said, do that for all of your accounts. Adopt new technologies or new services like managed detection and response that can be delivered by SOC. You have different possibilities there, and that will guarantee a complete coverage and a surveillance and also automated responses. Securely backup your data. Backupping your data is not enough. It needs to be properly secured. And then document your response plan and subscribe to an expert incident response team that has SLA and that can intervene remote or on-site. So to conclude, basically, don't try your luck and call experts. And as an expert, of course, approach, like I said, is an expert in cybersecurity and privacy. So we exist for more than 25 years. More than 100 skilled people with the different types of certification, and you can see with different offices in Belgium and Switzerland. And of course, we are also certified 27001, 27701, and we are complying with the NIS2 and the RGPD. Services that we deliver, advisory and staffing, so strategic advisory. We have expert in consulting, we can guide you, we can train you, and we can temporarily staff your team as well. We do provide awareness and education. We have a lot of technology vendor as a partner. We do integration of those technology. We also have managed service in 24/7. And we also have our own software development capabilities. With a complete portfolio that covers phishing and awareness, GRC, data protection, data privacy, data governance, threat detection and response, secure application and cloud security. And with that being said, thank you very much for your attention and hope to see you soon.